Tomorrow night in Charlotte, North Carolina, the last game of the college basketball Final Four will be played, and the NCAA champion will be crowned. But the most intense competition in college basketball may not be on the court. It may be among the Final Four of basketball shoes: Nike, Reebok, Converse, and Adidas. The only score that matters to them is the number of college coaches they sign up. They're paying coaches hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars to put their sneakers on the feet of their players. Talk about bidding wars. It all began in 1978 when Sonny Vaccaro, a former coach and lifetime basketball junkie, went to Nike with a proposition. You want to get kids to buy your basketball shoes? Then get the college players, who are their heroes, to wear them. How do you do that? Pay their coaches to make them wear them. At first, he didn't have to pay them much.
I remember when I first walked into a couple of my friends at that time, head coaches, I said, I'm going to give you $2,500 and free shoes. Now the school's happy and you're happy. And at that time, no one believed that I was going to give them money to wear the shoes, and I mean that.
Was this ever challenged by anybody?
Well, I think originally it was, yeah. When we first made I called it the kamikaze attack, when I went in and got all my coaches, everyone thought it was all illegal. Everyone thought something unethical was happening, and they were blaming Sonny Vaccaro and Nike for doing this thing that no one ever has done. And so, yes, it was challenged, but there was nothing illegal about it. There was never anything wrong. I never went around and said, psst, come and sign this with me or do this. I was upfront about it from day one.
The coaches are acting because their players are wearing whatever it is, the shoes or whatever. The coach doesn't really do anything for that money, does he?
Well, that's not true.
Get the kids to wear the shoes.
Well, that's the most important thing as we see it today.
In his first couple of years, Vaccaro signed up 90 coaches, and Nike ended up dominating the market. That success eventually forced other shoe companies into full-court bidding wars, driving the dollars up. By 1985, Vaccaro and Nike were paying Georgetown's John Thompson $200,000 a year to put his players in Nikes. And that same year, Vaccaro reached another milestone.
I had all 4 schools in the Final Four, which meant we controlled every telecast, every newspaper photo, everything, every day. We owned
Cover
it.
Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, everything. It had to be a Nike shoe. It had to be a Nike shoe because all our guys were there. Every interview the coaches went to, every one the players went to, every picture that some guy...
Every time they ran up and down the court, it was
the swoosh. Yeah, we had it. And that was the greatest coup of all.
A decade later, and 6-figure shoe deals are run-of-the-mill for Nike. For top coaches, they're paying millions.
Oh, is he a superstar?
That superstar is Duke's Grant Hill scoring against North Carolina. It's an arch rivalry, but all those feet running up and down the court, Duke feet and Carolina feet, are on the same team, Team Nike. That's because before this season, Nike lured both coaches away from competitors. North Carolina's Dean Smith left Converse and got, for starters, a $500,000 signing bonus. And Nike paid even more to take Duke coach Mike Krzyzewski away from Adidas, according to Nike's Steve Miller. As we understand it, Nike paid coach Krzyzewski a $1 million signing bonus, $375,000 a year, plus Nike stock options and some kind of retirement annuity. Is that about right?
It's a fair general observation of that relationship.
Why has the money gotten so big?
Well, I think the money's gotten big. Maybe we should ask CBS why they paid $1.1 billion for the Final Four. The audiences are vast. It's an incredible business, and there's an enormous passion for sport.
Every sneaker maker is trying to shoehorn its way into that incredible business. That's why the scene around this weekend's Final Four looks more like a footwear trade show than the coaches' convention it really is. Coaches accustomed to recruiting players are now the ones being recruited. Sonny Vaccaro left Nike in 1990. Now he's recruiting coaches for Adidas.
For every coach in attendance, that's 3,000 or 4,000 coaches. We'll have a gift for everybody. Everyone does. That's a perk. That's part of being in the business. And it's expected of you.
And the kids who play the game can't take
anything.
one thing.
I can't take them to dinner. That makes me sick.
You can't get, can you give them a bag with some stuff in it?
No.
Zero.
No, zilch.
They get nothing.
Nothing.
That makes Dick DeVenzio mad. When he was Duke's point guard back in the late 60s, there was no such thing as a shoe deal. But as DeVenzio watched the shoes change and the dollars grow, he embarked on a one-man crusade for what he calls players' rights.
I think that it's unfair that college coaches are allowed to benefit from shoe deals, but college players are not. In the case of Duke University, for example, Nike would rather give money to Grant Hill to wear shoes than to Mike Krzyzewski, but the system says Mike Krzyzewski is allowed to benefit, Grant Hill is not.
The idea that players should get any of that shoe money is absolute heresy to NCAA President Joseph Crowley. He says their athletic scholarships are compensation enough.
I suppose there are about 15 million, give or take, college students in this country, and I suspect that the parents of most of them would be overjoyed to have the kind of financial assistance that is provided to student athletes. I mean, they get tuition fees, room, board, books.
Does it strike you that it's as if these kids are wearing a sandwich board and that the school is kind of making them do that? They're walking advertisements. They're plastered with a logo from a company. And they get, the thing is, they get nothing. The kids get zero out of it.
Well, I mean, those are the rules. Intercollegiate athletics is a business for amateur athletes, and you can't have an amateur sport if the players are getting paid stipends. It
But can
really
you
comes
have
down
an
to that.
amateur sport if the coach is getting $1 million from Nike?
Well, sure. I mean, we do.
I realize that NCAA administrators with straight faces call this amateur basketball, but I don't know anybody, I don't even know any normal citizens that call it amateur basketball. The only people that are amateurs, I mean, all the coaches are probably millionaires that appear in the Final Four, and if they're not, they will be soon. It's only the players that are the amateurs. So you have basically a professional enterprise that has one tiny element that's amateurish, and that's that the players may not get any money.
These kids, whatever you want to say about it, are still here to get an education. At least they should be. It is still different.
Well, you can say it's different, but again, my feeling is that the colleges have opted for a professional system. No one's forcing universities to enter in multi-million-dollar TV contracts or any other kind of contract. Let me just say, this is my grandest fantasy. If someday, before the Final Four, I could get all 60 participants together in one room for 1 hour, I'd like to start out and say, do you realize that Donald Trump and Ted Turner and people like this would think you were all stupid, dumb jocks? And maybe when they thought, gee, this is a shock, why are you saying that? You're about to participate in a $100 million tournament, 60 of you, and you're all willing to do it for nothing. That wouldn't make much sense to most American capitalists.
Coaches are very sensitive about all this. We asked about a dozen of the top ones, including Indiana's Bobby Knight and Dean Smith and Mike Krzyzewski, to talk to us about their shoe deals. They all said no. So we went down to the Duke, North Carolina game. Hi, Coach Smith, Leslie Stoll with 60 Minutes. Sir, we're doing a story on the sneaker deals, and we're wondering if you think that the players should be allowed to get some of that money.
I certainly had the players vote on which one we went to, and then the money went to the university.
It's not true that all that money went to the university. Nike does give the school about $100,000 a year, along with free shoes and equipment for almost every sport. But Smith's contract calls for him to keep that $500,000 signing bonus. Nike pays him another $300,000 every year for 4 years. Smith gives that annual salary away, but mostly to assistant coaches, not the school. After the game, we asked Duke's Mike Krzyzewski about his multi-million-dollar deal with Nike.
Do you think it's right that you take the money and they play the game and they don't get any of it at all?
I think is that schools make decisions on how they appropriate all sorts of funds. And if Duke University is pleased, or North Carolina, or Fordham, on how people, do you get paid for your job?
I get paid for what I do.
Okay, well then, I hope that you would understand that schools make decisions on how the money that comes into the schools is appropriated to the people who work for that school.
But the money from Nike is not coming into the school, it's coming to Coach Krzyzewski. All Duke did was approve the deal. Krzyzewski did make a $250,000 contribution to Duke after getting that $1 million signing bonus. Truth is, without the shoe deal, Duke probably couldn't afford to keep Krzyzewski, couldn't compete with a big offer from the NBA. Duke and all the other schools have come to count on the shoe money and the free sneakers.
I really think it's dreadful that universities will sell their good name, which they have never sold before, to shoe companies and not even make much out of it. It's the coaches who make the money.
Murray Sperber is a professor at Indiana University. At his school, Coach Bobby Knight has not one, but two big-dollar deals, with Converse for shoes and with Starter for clothing. He is paid to wear a sweater with the university name and the Starter symbol as a combined logo.
No other member of the university community can sell the university's name for advertising. It's that simple. If a professor of chemistry stood in her lab and said, it said University of whatever, and said, buy this over-the-counter medicine, the university lawyers would be there before the cameras had left and say, you cannot sell our name like this. Only coaches can do this. I don't see why they should not be treated as every other employee of the university and told, you can't sell our names like this.
Just a few years ago, a special reform panel did recommend that coaches' shoe deals be banned. But the NCAA ignored the proposal and instead passed a rule simply saying that any deal a coach makes must be approved by his university. Sonny Vaccaro says that's just a rubber stamp.
Can you imagine a school, Bobby Knight's school, not approving what he wanted, for instance?
Not just Coach Knight. I think anyone of that stature, yes. I don't think anyone will stop in their way. No. The coaches are the program at that particular school.
Has it ever happened?
Well, I don't know. I'm not an expert in these matters. I mean,
You as the head of the NCAA, do not know any college president ever challenged a coach on a shoe deal?
No. I mean, that's not information I would collect as the president of the association.
Do you know how many coaches in the country, college coaches, have shoe deals?
No, I don't. That's not information that the NCAA would collect.
There's no tracking at all. There's no oversight. There's zero oversight.
No, that's correct. There is, not that I'm aware of.
This same NCAA that pays so little attention to what coaches make has 100 pages of rules spelling out what athletes cannot make.
If an athlete takes any kind of money at all, he can be thrown off the team. These are very punitive rules.
Oh, absolutely. If an athlete takes $10, he can be off the team for life.
But on the team, athletes pretty much have to wear their coach's chosen logo. It was hard to tell whether winning another trip to the Final Four was a bigger victory for Duke or for Nike.
What would you do if the next time Duke played, Grant Hill walked out on the court and he was wearing Converse?
I think I would probably call Coach K and find out exactly why without going off the deep end too quickly. But I think I'd want to know if there was some other reason besides, you know, an obvious breach of contract.
Basically, if the university does not wear the shoes, then there's no kickback to the company that's hiring you. That's honest. There's nothing wrong with that.
But you call it a kickback. I mean, that's not a nice word, a kickback.
That's what it is. Why isn't it? I mean, it's a payback, kickback. I mean, I don't know what that term is, Leslie, but that's what it is.
Last week, the NCAA arranged a kickback of its own. It gave Starter exclusive rights to put their hats and T-shirts on the winners of tomorrow night's game. The size of the deal? The NCAA won't say.